Does anyone else remember the fever dream of a period we experienced for kids' movies in the early 2000s? With movies like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, where Jim Carrey literally had to go through torture training in order to wear the costume and bring the character to life.
Hire a gentleman who is trained to teach CIA operatives how to endure torture.
Or the absolute coma-inducing movie that is The Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers.
Who is this? Oh.
You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
But I think the live-action 2002 Scooby Doo movie belongs more with the Spy Kids movies or even Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire. Movies that are insane and crazy on every level, but yet somehow still work. Originally starting development all the way back in 1994, the first live-action Scooby Doo movie was set to be darker and poke fun at the cartoon. The darker tone does get scaled back for the final version, but James Gunn, yes, that James Gunn, says that an R-rated version exists. I saw this movie as a kid in theaters and remember thinking it was like the cartoon brought to life, and upon my only rewatch since, I think that mostly holds up. The gags and jokes aren't always kid-friendly, and some have aged pretty poorly, but the heart of this movie really shines through. I mean, they even got Pamela Anderson from Baywatch and Sugar Ray, the singer, to be in this movie. And what kids in 2002 didn't love Pamela Anderson and Sugar Ray? So with all of that, let's get into it. The movie opens with a traditional Scooby-Doo style mystery. We get introduced to the flawless casting of the Mystery Incorporated gang as they attempt to thwart a ghost. In Scooby-Doo fashion, Shaggy and Scooby mess up the plan, but still ultimately come through in the end by knocking the ghost out and saving the day. I love the mask reveal and how spot on even the wrap-up from Fred feels to the original cartoon. And with that, I think the biggest thing this movie has going for it is how each of the live-action actors feel like the cartoon brought to life. They each nail who their character is and how they behave, which elevates this to a whole other level. But after this big bust, not all is as perfect as it seems, as Fred, Velma, and Daphne all quit. 2 years go by and we get a brilliant smoking fake-out, which lives up to the Shaggy Stoner vibe. And in the original draft of this movie, Mike Myers was gonna play Shaggy, and he was going to be a stoner. And all I gotta say is Matthew Lillard as Shaggy is one of my favorite castings of all time. This reclusive owner of Spooky Island invites each of the gang members to the island to solve a mystery. In order to get to the island, Scooby has to get on a plane, but to do so, he disguises himself as a grandma. If I saw someone trying to sneak their dog onto a flight by dressing them as an old lady, I would immediately change flights. That's like getting stuck next to a crying baby on an international flight. Can you imagine how painful that would be? No way. No way I'm taking that risk. I'm changing flights. On the plane to Spooky Island, Shaggy meets his love interest, Mary Jane, who also loves to eat dog treats. I never fully understood the whole aspect of a human also eating dog treats, but if Shaggy is supposed to be the stoner, I guess the munchies can get the best of us. When they get off the plane, they are greeted by the one and only Mr. Bean himself to give them the lowdown. He believes that the college kids on his island are falling victim to a spell because they arrive as party animals and leave as super strong psychos. That night on the island, Scoob is easily tricked to go into the forest for free hamburgers, where he's attacked by a weird CGI hairless cat. I mean, I know it's not a hairless cat, but it looks like a Sphinx cat had sex with a goblin, and this was the result. Luckily, he quite literally swats it away with a tree by accident, and then Daphne recruits Shaggy and Scooby to go investigate a creepy castle on the island. Fred and Velma also show up at the castle, and in a classic Scooby-Doo cartoon line, Fred suggests that they split up and look for clues. Small shout out to Freddie Prinze Jr. here playing Fred. Again, just embodies this character so well. During the castle investigation, we get some fantastic writing by James Gunn.
All you care about are swimsuit models.
No! Look, I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on too.
Okay, let's be honest here. If you saw Velma, the
dorky chicks
thing would go away immediately. I mean, she was my childhood crush and my sister's too. You cannot tell me that 2002 Velma wouldn't pull any guy she wants. The castle ride ends up getting activated, and after narrowly escaping death, they each make a very important discovery. Fred and Velma find this weird training video that brainwashes the college kids that watch it, while Daphne comes across an artifact that she proceeds to then steal. As for Shaggy and Scooby, they discover a TV set, and then for way longer than any movie should have, we get this wonderful and painful extended farting scene. That is literally the entire scene, and I get that for a kids movie that would probably be pretty funny, but watching that as a 30-year-old just made me cringe. While hiding from some goons who show up at the castle, the gang hides in some medieval armor. I think this might be a nod to an episode from the cartoon series titled Haunted House Hang-Up, where they also hide in armor. I like how then Velma, the super smart one, takes out the relic they just stole from a super creepy castle, and she just starts examining it in public on the island, because then some random guy comes up to her and she just starts telling him all about it, no questions asked, including a flashback for even more exposition. Back in the day, Scrappy Doo was on the team, but he was so insufferable and also peed on Daphne that they just threw him out on the side of the road. I will say, having a random flashback to Scrappy halfway through the movie kinda gives away that he's somewhat involved with the shenanigans, or at least feels out of place, especially how he's depicted in the flashback we saw earlier. The hairless cat returns, and by using its bad breath, it captures Fred, Velma, and Mr. Bean, as well as some random college kids. The remaining mystery gang radio the Coast Guard for help, but the next day, everything at the island is put back together and there's no evidence of a monster attack. But turns out Fred and Velma have been brainwashed and they go after Shaggy and Scooby while stealing the artifact from Daphne. Of course, this is all child's play for the one and only Shaggy and Scooby, who then make their grand escape on ATVs. During the escape, they end up picking up Mary Jane, and Scooby gets a glimpse of her real identity, and it's not what it seems for the love interest of this movie. After trying to warn Shaggy, Scooby falls down a trap door, and when Shaggy goes after him, he discovers a weird cauldron of floating spirit heads. Someone is stealing people's protoplasm, and when Velma returns to her body, one of the hairless cat monsters pops out of her body and then explodes in the daylight. However, when Shaggy releases Fred, he ends up in Daphne's body, and Daphne ends up in Fred's. Then we are treated to more of that fantastic early 2000s James Gunn's writing with this lovely moment.
Hey, I can look at myself naked.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Turns out the bad guys want this artifact in order to create a ritual, which will then have these hairless cat creatures taking over the world for 10,000 years. In a twist everybody sees coming, the true villain is none other than Mr. Bean, who brought Scooby here because he needs to sacrifice him in order to perform the ritual. So the gang comes up with a plan and sets off to save their dog. Immediately the plan fails, and Mr. Bean takes Scooby's floating ghost head and tries to absorb it. Shaggy steps in to save the day, and in the middle of his shenanigans, Mr. Bean is knocked over, and it's revealed he's not a man at all. The real twist of this movie is that he's actually Scrappy Doo, who put this whole thing together in order to get revenge. This also turns Scrappy into a giant monster, which is where this movie is a little bit of a letdown. I think aside from this forced and out-of-place ending with Scrappy being the villain, this story feels like a Scooby Doo mystery. I mean, maybe minus the real monsters, but there's also that one movie of Scooby Doo where they encounter real zombies. So in my mind, anything is possible in the world of Scooby Doo. Plus, in the TV show, Scrappy is a good guy, so why is he all of a sudden a little shitstick villain? Also, during this third act, everyone gets their own individual beating up the bad guys moment, and I can confidently say I don't remember anyone in the cartoon beating people up. The gang defeats Scrappy in the end and saves the day, proving that they are the best detectives who work for free. Seriously, who pays them for all this mystery solving? Everyone gets returned to their bodies while the whole island claps and cheers before the credits roll. I think one of the craziest parts about watching this as an adult is knowing that the man who wrote all 3 Guardian of the Galaxy movies and is honing the new Superman also wrote this. Makes me a little worried that we're due for another overly long farting scene in one of his new movies, but overall, I think he nailed the heart of these characters. Besides the jokes and the story beats that don't always land, this feels almost like an episode of the cartoon brought straight to the big screen. I mean, again, Matthew Lillard single-handedly carries this movie past the finish line and then some for his performance as Shaggy alone. I also really like how there is one moment where Mr. Bean shows that he's scrappy, and it's so subtle that I barely noticed it. Him scratching like a dog for just a second is a nice little inclusion for the mystery side of the story. Even the set design and costumes across this whole movie are spot on, and even though they are over 2 decades old, I think the look and feel still hold up fairly well today. I won't lie, this might be the first movie I've covered on this channel where I'm too biased to see past anything other than the movie I loved as a kid, coming from a cartoon I watched religiously. So because of that, and because I can do whatever I want, I'm putting Scooby Doo in So Bad, It's Good. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to check out my video on the movie The Emoji Movie, a just plain garbage type of film. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what movie you'd like to see me cover in the future.